Hello and welcome to Campus Stories. I'm your host, Joe Garris. And with me today is Dr. Viktor Krul. He is our Rooney Scholar and he is coming with us all the way from Moscow, Russia. Thank you for being here, Viktor.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Viktor, you last week, October 3rd, took part in a conference, for the lack of a better word, on celebrating communications. You gave a lecture at this conference. Can you tell us a little bit about your lecture?
Yeah, I would start from the whole event. I like such events because of their openness. In Moscow State University I came from, we have once a year the Open Door Day, where everybody can come, ask questions, meet professors, teachers, and in order to understand totally what journalism school is about. And here for communication, for the School of Communications and Information Sciences, it's a great chance to show up and to communicate people and then to recruit students. And I must say, up to my observations, it was very successful, what I observed on the 3rd of October. I was invited to give a lecture, but it was not a lecture in stricto sensu because the target audience was different. When I speak to students, then I try to shift them up and using more academic vocabulary. These students were high school students, so I have to simplify things a little bit, but mostly it was about Ukrainian conflict in Ukraine. And my main idea was that, in fact, the trigger of the war we see there was the information warfare, was a massive propaganda from both sides, from Russian and Ukrainian side, that finally caused that the guns started to shoot. I tried to redefine propaganda because in Russia and Ukraine this word sometimes and more often is used in a neutral or even positive way. We are promoting our ideas. We are promoting our set of values, which is completely agreeable. But at the same time, if we analyze the content of big media on both sides, we have a lot of, we can observe a lot of biased information. We have observe a lot of very incomplete coverage of the event, one-sided coverage of the event, which is not in line with journalism standards. I tried to explain it to youngsters that gathered during Com Day in the 3rd of October here in RMU campus. So mostly that is, and I reminded to young people, some of them may enter RMU, that I like the definition of journalism, very simple. I like it very much, given by Nick Davis, famous journalist of Guardian, British newspaper, and he said that journalism, the main aim of journalism is to say truth about important things. Truth about important things is something very necessary in contemporary world. And another accent of my lecture was the critical thinking, critical perception, critical consumption of media. This is what we are missing in Russia, because the level of media literacy in Russia is still comparably to the United States, as far as I can understand, is low. And it's our task to learn people to have a critical approach to big media. It will make their life safer. It will prevent their sons from going to the war we have in Ukraine.
And going into that further, you teach at Moscow State University. How would you prepare your students for going into a situation like this?
It's a very difficult question. So it's a very good question, but difficult to reply for me, because the reality the journalistic culture, if we can call it, and the normative model of journalism, how it should be and how it is, these two things are splitting and have bigger and bigger gap in between. I teach journalism ethics, and I teach my students not to lie under any circumstances, because lie is something that inappropriate in any journalism. When they come to media enterprises, they will be enforced to give one-sided information. They will be enforced to be a part of propaganda. Some of them will agree and be obedient and participate in it. Some of them will resist, and the space for those who is resistant is getting narrow, because they can go to some very few independent newspapers in Russia or go internet, because internet still in Russia are free from censorship.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. We will be right back with more from Campus Stories.
These boys are my heroes. They come every week to spend time with my children.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
They can teach them something no one else can.
Wisconsin.
They're role models to the children, and homework comes way before sports. Their grades have improved, and their lives are just a bit richer.
Okay.
What they do for my kids is truly wonderful.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
I call them my lifeline.
People don't realize how quickly you can end up on the street. One thing happens in your life, medical bills you can't pay, you lose your job, and that's it.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
We went to DC to work with the homeless. They sell a newspaper called Street Sense. Thought I'd help.
But if you want to give more, you can.
This person came up to me and said, "Get a job." And for 2 hours, I felt what it was like to be homeless.
Good morning. $1 help.
Some of the other students said, "How can we change this?" And I said, "Sometimes you can't change the world, but you may be able to change one person's world." My dream? Open a psych clinic for people on the street.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
Welcome back to Campus Stories. With me still is Dr. Viktor Krul. While you're here, you have worked with both the Russian news agency as well as the Russian National Catholic Weekly. What was the experience working with both those news organizations?
But it was not in the same time. It was, I have been for 10 years editor-in-chief of Russian National Catholic Weekly, entitled Svet Evangelia, The Light of the Gospel. And it was ecclesial weekly. I had an ecclesial advisor. It has been established and run by the Russian National Bishops' Conference. Therefore, the journalism in this newspaper was very specific. It was the journalism with church mission inside. And I like the Catholic approach to media, very well developed and articulated in many documents of Roman Curia, which worthy to be studied in universities, I think. I tried to introduce to my student in Moscow State, at least. The situation, the normative situation of Catholic newspaper is very well balanced. I, as the editor-in-chief, I'm responsible for the content, and I try to make the weekly as interesting as possible. I try to find some hot issues to discuss. I try to find some very fabulous stories. I try to find some things that would be interesting to analyze from Catholic point of view, and therefore sometimes I find myself in a risky territories in ad marginum, and so I propose certain content once a week as a weekly content to Ecclesial Advisor. Normally, I collaborated with a number of priests, maybe altogether 7 or 8, during 10 years of my editorial work there. And their approach is different. They do not pay too much attention how interesting the content is, the stories are, but he has to be a guardian of people's souls. He has to be a watchdog and to find out if any in this newspaper I propose to be published can bring damage to the soul of people. And then he says, look, this article you probably rewrite or better take it out. And he gives his reasoning. I give my reasoning. We are discussing, and finally we have some consensus. Once when I went from my office earlier, the newspaper has not been signed, hasn't been closed, almost ready, sent to Ecclesial Advisor, but I had to go to Petersburg. I taught that time in the seminary, Catholic teaching on mass media. I left earlier, and when I left, one story have been objected by Ecclesial Advisor, and he insisted to remove it, and the newspaper appeared with a not whole blank page, but 1/8 of this page was blank, what raised some questions from readers, but it is a story. I enjoyed very much this part of my biography because the experience I got from them is very helpful in my teaching. And news agency, it's another stage. After the newspaper has been closed, they recruited me, they bought me, mostly as an expert in Catholicism than the journalists. And I wrote some stories, and secular media doesn't allow you to advertise church as I used to do in Catholic Weekly. So it's different standard, and it's again very interesting experience in terms how to put Christian values into secular journalism.
And did you ever run into any difficulties trying to write for the Russian news agency because of this? By the moment, no, I won't say. There is a certain editorial policy, and this editorial policy is based mostly on the state policy towards religions. In Russia, we have very complicated situation. I am going to cover it in more detailed way during my public lecture. I will have, I don't remember the date, late October. But briefly, there are 4 religions in Russia that are considered to be traditional: Orthodox Christianity, Islam, Buddhism in some parts of Siberia, and Judaism. Catholicism is not included in traditional ones. Therefore, the portion or the percentage of attention towards Catholicism was very low. But my responsibility area was the Vatican and Western Christianity. And the Pope and what is happening in the Vatican is always interesting for Russian audience. That's why I managed to make
Catholicism more attractive for Russian readers, proportionally even bigger than some other traditional religions.
Okay, thank you for that. We will have more to talk about after this break.
Nicaragua is a completely different world. We were there to bring nursing care to some desperate people.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
The very first person that I met was David. Kept saying, "You have to come to my house and watch me play my trumpet." You could tell from the look on his face that it was just his most prized possession. I get back home. A few weeks later, I got a message that a gang had broken into his house at night and they stole it, which was his life. So next trip back, we gave him a new one. The look on his face was just complete disbelief. He just absolutely couldn't believe it. And to be able to do something like that is one of the best moments of my life. He said he'd never forget us.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
These boys are my heroes. They come every week to spend time with my children.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
They can teach them something no one else can.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
They're role models to the children, and homework comes way before sports. Their grades have improved, and their lives are just a bit richer.
Okay.
What they do for my kids is truly wonderful.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
I call them my lifeline.
We're back with Campus Stories. So Victor, you have also served on the Pontifical Council for the Laity,
Pontifical Council for the Laity, yeah.
Which-
I know it in English.
which assists the Pope in his relations with dealing with the laity or the non-clerical people. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was very much enriching and I would say changing life experience, using the slogan of RMU. It was mostly occasionally that I got there. I was not a Vatican official in any sense. First time I met the Pope John Paul II, now proclaimed as a saint in the Roman Catholic Church. In 1991, it was in Poland, in Częstochowa, where hundreds of Russian pilgrims, first time after Iron Curtain fall, they were able to participate in the event. And 2 years later, when the World Youth Day was held in Denver, Colorado, in the States, I was one of Russian delegates there. I brought some pictures to show to you from that time. And the Archbishop of Denver, later on Cardinal Stafford, when he was called to the Roman Curia and he became president of the Pontifical Council for the Laity, he invited me to join as a member. I was a member. It means that I was not an officer of the council. I was invited as around 30 other members once or twice a year to the Vatican, and we had an agenda. We discussed some problems and issues with lay movements in the church, with lay activity in the church, with the dignity of women in the church as well, hot issue at that time, widely discussed in the world. During every plenary assembly, we had a very brief, short, but meeting with the Pope, John Paul II. I was a member of the council from 1996 till 2001 at that pontificate. And I really enjoyed this few minutes of talking with the man whom I was more than convinced that time that he is a saint. Now the church confirmed it. So you can imagine that the communication with a saint brings experience, but the members of the council were distinguished, outstanding people. I was probably the youngest one that time in the council, experienced people, and I learned a lot, especially when I became editor-in-chief of Catholic Weekly. I had a lot of good friends all around the world. I could ask them, interview them, ask for cooperation. So it enriched myself not only personally but professionally as well.
And you spoke earlier when you were answering that about the relation with women in the Catholic Church. Was that the biggest dealing that that you worked with during the time?
I just mentioned as one of, at that time, Neo-Catechumenal Way as a movement was doubtful and not approved. Now it's approved. Some other association of lay people. The church is a very conservative body, and therefore everything must be checked, rechecked many times before the church will improve it. It was not our direct task. There were special people to do this, but we were as judges there, and we brought our experience. But the essential part of this General Assemblies was a spiritual part. The masses and spiritual retreats and some homilies, some conferences. Therefore, coming back to women in the church, I remember the press conference in Denver, 1993. I was one who was taken to journalists that time, and it was 1 hour conference with very, very hot questions about women's ordinations in Catholic Church and so on. And after the conference, I found myself so conservative. I found myself at that time, I have no questions to hierarchy. But I must say that I am coming from the part of Europe, probably until now it's Poland, Lithuania, the most conservative Catholic part. And the subject widely discussed in the USA at that time were not exposed at all in my country, in Russia now. We don't have altar girls until now. We do not have, in most cases, lay people giving communion. Therefore, I was in the Pontifical Council, the conservative voice. But there were other voices, so it was a very well-balanced body.
And what would you say it's like working for an organization like, or working with an organization like the Catholic Church, which is not only possibly one of the oldest organizations in the world, but really widespread?
Yeah, so I am Roman Catholic. I was baptized when I was 3 months, so it's very naturally that when Archbishop invites you, you are a journalist, please take care of the newspaper. I say yes. In our tradition, we almost never say no to priests or even or bishops or cardinals. It is one side of this question, but another side, yes, this organization, if we can call it the mystical body of Christ, but institutionally, this church in the earth is a very old organization. It makes sometimes some people of the church, some priests, even cardinals, make mistakes. And you know the sorrowful stories with priests involved. But the promising in all this thing is that the church is guided by Christ and has enough things, enough force or spirit inside to heal all these sicknesses, all these illnesses. That's why I think it's something. And now as well, I work for some Catholic news agencies based in Rome, in Poland, and other countries, as well covering news in Moscow.
Okay. Well, we'll be right back with more after this break.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
I'm starving. What's for breakfast?
Guten Tag!
Johannes, Franz!
I bring you arts-enriched Raisinblums, fortified with increased test scores and creative problem-solving skills.
It's good!
And good for you.
Bobby? Susie?
Don't worry, that's just the power of the art.
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit americansforthearts.org.
You ever think about buying a bigger place?
Just waiting for a visit from the credit fairy.
There is no credit fairy.
How else will I get a better credit score?
Look, you keep your credit card balances low and only open a new card if you really need it.
No fairy?
There's no magic to improving your credit, but there's help, and it's free. Go to creditfairy.org.
Yes, ready, ready.
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Welcome back to Campus Stories. So, Victor, you will be giving a series of 3 lectures on campus. We talked about your first one you gave on October 3rd. Can you tell us a little bit more about your final 2 lectures you'll be giving?
Yeah, I'm going to speak about the very next lecture it is entitled in tricky way, what do Russians really think, or what Russians have in their minds. It was my 2 proposals for organizers to choose one. They choose both, and so the title is so complicated. But it will be mostly methodological lecture for researchers, and the idea is that traditionally we obtain knowledge about public opinion and mass consciousness from public opinion polls. This Gallup, I would say, American-born paradigm of knowledge. But now, when everybody of us, many billions people, they write something every day in open space, in the internet, we have a huge empirical material. Analyzing it, we can understand again what do people think. But the problem is how to withdraw, how to extract from all these writings, for all this self-expression of people, the representative amount of knowledge and analyze it. And again, it will be part of my lecture. Then another part will be about the values Russians share and the differences between Russian and American mentality and cultural codes. Then I will give a lecture on religion and media in Russia. And the last one, it will be question and answers session in the library.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much for your time, Victor. It was lovely to have you. Please join us next time on Campus Stories.
Goodbye, all the best to you.